Welcome to CivilNet. Joining me today is Joel Veldkamp, the Director of Public Advocacy at Christian Solidarity International. He holds a PhD in history and has extensive experience in the Middle East and North Africa. Dr. Veldkamp, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Angela.
So, could you begin by explaining the core mission of Christian Solidarity International and why the situation in Armenia has become such a significant point of focus for your organization?
Sure. So CSI was founded in 1977. We're an interconfessional Christian human rights group, and our mission is to support religious freedom and human dignity for all people, but especially to support persecuted Christians and people who are persecuted for their religious beliefs around the world. So we've been doing that in one way or another since 1977. During the first Karabakh War in the 90s, we were very active, bringing medicine across the blockade into Stepanakert during the siege and trying to make the world aware of what was happening here. And since 2020, sadly, we've had to get engaged again to try to help the people of Nagorno-Karabakh and Artsakh. And for us, this is really a pivotal question. It's a small country. Nagorno-Karabakh is even smaller than Armenia, but it is the first Christian nation in the world, and it's really has huge implications for the worldwide Christian community. If we aren't able to help this nation survive the existential threats that are arrayed against it right now, then there's really not very much hope for Christians in Nigeria or Christians in Sudan or Christians in Syria. Armenia is very visible, very doable. It's a known story. You know, the Armenian genocide was the first major genocide of the 20th century. It's widely recognized. If we can't make this happen, that's really a bad sign.
And about your current trip right now, what are some of the key points? What is it that you're planning on doing?
The occasion of this visit is we've been invited to attend Armenia's first national prayer breakfast, which will take place tomorrow and Saturday. And we've been very honored to be invited, and so we've come. We're happy that the prayer breakfast is happening. We're happy that we're seeing this visible sign of growing links between Christians in the West and Christians in Armenia, growing understanding in the United States of the threats that are facing Armenia. But these are also very difficult times in Armenia itself. And so we have submitted a formal request to the Armenian Ministry of Justice to visit four clergymen and about 23 lay members of the church who are imprisoned, who have been imprisoned since June. Of course, the clergy are Archbishop Bargat Gilstanian, Archbishop Mikhail Ajapahian, Bishop Mekirtich Proshian, and Father Garagin Arsenian.
Wow. And I mean, what is the primary purpose of those visits? What is it that you hope to learn from these meetings? Like maybe their condition or the charges against them, maybe? What is it that you,
Yeah, exactly. We want to check on their well-being. We want to see what conditions they're being held in. We want to try to understand the charges that are against them. And we want to collect this information to write a comprehensive human rights report about this situation. And we think it would be a great credit to transparency for the Armenian government and to the rule of law in Armenia if we and other human rights groups are granted this access to see these prisoners.
Right. And how do you view the arrests of the Armenian clergy? Is it a matter of religious persecution, or is it a political conflict? Maybe it's a little bit of both?
It usually is a little bit of both, we find in our work. Persecution is almost always religious and political at the same time. But it seems quite clear to us that the current Armenian government sees the Armenian church as a rival power center, that they don't like the sharp criticism that the Armenian church has mounted against their foreign policy.
Right.
And so ahead of the ongoing peace process with Azerbaijan and ahead of the parliamentary elections next year, it seems like the government is really trying to cut dissent off at the knees. And it's really, the scale of this assault on the Armenian church is shocking when you have the prime minister saying we need to replace the Catholicos of all Armenians worldwide, and replace him with someone chosen by a committee that the prime minister will design. This is a shocking attack on religious freedom. And so in that context, when priests are put in prison and we're told, oh, they're part of a plot to overthrow the government, but later we find out that some of the evidence was falsified against one of the archbishops, and the other archbishop was imprisoned only for remarks he made in a media interview that the prosecutor general's office had earlier decided did not constitute warrant for prosecution.
Right.
That he's then prosecuted, put on trial very hastily, and sentenced to 2 years for a charge that other people have been sentenced to community service or fines for.
Right.
So it's very clear this is a politically motivated attack on the church, an attempt to undermine the influence and the authority of the church, and it's a threat to religious freedom and political freedom in Armenia.
Well, now the government alleges that the church has overstepped into politics, and the church calls it an anti-church campaign. So we have two sides of this. Obviously, there's always two sides to any kind of dispute. But from your international perspective, where's the line between a religious leader's right to speak on moral issues and improper involvement in politics?
Well, I think of all the Christian leaders who are coming here from the United States for this prayer breakfast, right? If you were to imagine President Trump or President Biden or President Harris putting pastors in jail for their political activities, can you imagine the reaction from these people, from the religious right? They would never accept such a thing. And it's not for us to say how Armenians want to write their laws, but what we can say is that the prosecutions of these clergymen and their supporters have been improper. So, I'm not here to say that the Armenian church has always done everything right. That's not the point. The Armenian government is bound by international law and by the Armenian constitution to behave in a just way.
And it's very interesting in light of Prime Minister Pashinyan's diplomatic engagements in the present situation. There's a striking contrast, right? And there's the National Prayer Breakfast that's going to be taking place. There's the previous, not too long ago, he visited the Vatican and met with Pope Leo the 14th, yes. And how do you reconcile this dichotomy of the Prime Minister's projection as a champion of faith and religious freedom on the world stage and the actions against the national church at home?
Yeah, it's an apparent dichotomy, but actually there are two sides of the same coin. 5 years ago, when Azerbaijan attacked Nagorno-Karabakh, sadly, almost no one in the Christian world in the West understood what was happening. There was very little response. Over the last few years, that has changed. There is now a lot of sympathy in Washington, D.C., in the U.S., among Christian conservatives for Armenia. And for us, it's quite clear that the Prime Minister wants to take advantage of that. He wants to be the one to benefit from this sympathy, right? So that requires doing things like the prayer breakfast, welcoming these Christian leaders to Yerevan, making them feel welcome, portraying his government as very open to these links with Christians in the West, going to the Vatican. At the same time, he's intimidating and cutting off the Armenian church because he doesn't want competition for this sympathy.
Right. Okay, so let's say for the sake of playing devil's advocate, and just for the sake of argument, what if some of the accused clergy are technically guilty of the charges? Does that change the nature of your concern at all, or can it be perceived as legitimate law enforcement action? Or does it risk being perceived as a political tool to silence critical voices and institutions?
I mean, it definitely risks being seen that way. And that's, half of the issue. Governments have an obligation not to be seen to be doing that.
Exactly.
Right? Especially governments that are committed to democracy and human rights, like the government of Armenia. And unlike Armenia's neighbors, right? Armenia is the most free country in this region.
True.
And that's very precious and needs to be protected. Again, I'm not an Armenian legal expert, but I rely on what Armenian human rights groups say, which is Archbishop Mikhail Ajapahian meets the definition of a political prisoner, according to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. The evidence against Archbishop Galsanian was falsified. The charges against Bishop Proshian and Father Arsenian are very minor, things that tens of thousands of people in Armenia could be prosecuted for. Only they are being prosecuted for. These are very credible human rights organizations that are saying these things. These are not partisan entities. These are not church entities. These are human rights professionals that we have come to rely on in our work to support Armenians. So when they're saying these things, we take it extremely seriously.
Right. And then beyond the immediate fate of the imprisoned clergy, What do you believe are the long-term consequences for Armenian society if this rift between state and church deepens?
It's extremely grave. If the prime minister is successful in assuming leadership of the Armenian church, like in choosing the new Catholicos, in making sure the new Catholicos is under his influence, that really robs Armenia of a crucial mediating institution, right? This is a classic problem in politics. When you have a big state and then millions of little individuals, how do you protect these individuals against the power of the state? And an essential way to do that is mediating institutions, is things that stand in between the state and people, that bring people together, that advocate for people's interests, that frame political discourse in a way that's understandable for the average person. The Armenian church is like a super mediating institution. The Armenian church has kept the Armenian nation together for 1,700 years through statelessness, through genocide, through dispersion across the region, across the world. And if Armenia loses that, I don't want to predict what will happen to Armenia long term.
Okay, I'd like to pivot now a little bit to the international arena, which is a key part of what you do. In your writings and interviews, you've extensively discussed the ethnic cleansing of Nagorno-Karabakh, political issues and religious issues that have taken place in this region and area. What specific efforts is Catholic Solidarity International undertaking in diplomatic hubs like Geneva to keep the issue of the right of return on the international agenda?
Really quick, we're Christian Solidarity International, not Catholic.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's fine. I wouldn't say anything except for I'm evangelical. My coworker is Catholic. My boss is Catholic. My boss's boss is evangelical. That's very key to our identity, is that we're all Christians together.
So sorry about that.
No problem. So we have found some amazing allies in the Swiss parliament, and they have successfully passed a resolution mandating the Swiss government to hold a peace forum between Azerbaijan and the legitimate representatives of the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh to determine the parameters of the return of the people of Nagorno-Karabakh to their homeland. This is not in opposition to the main peace process that's being led by the United States between Armenia and Azerbaijan. This is a complementary peace process that addresses the root causes of the conflict between these two countries. And by giving a voice to the people of Nagorno-Karabakh, I mean, this is extremely appropriate. The Armenian government says Nagorno-Karabakh is part of Azerbaijan. People from Nagorno-Karabakh are refugees. They're not Armenian citizens unless they apply to be. Okay, in that case, we need a place for these people to be represented in the peace negotiations. The conflict is not over just because Azerbaijan successfully ethnically cleansed the territory.
Right.
The conflict continues as long as this is not addressed. So we have this, what we call the Swiss Peace Initiative for Nagorno-Karabakh. The Swiss government has this mandate. What we need now is international support so that the Swiss government feels empowered to actually follow this mandate. And this is not mission impossible. Over the summer, 87 members of the U.S. Congress sent a letter to Secretary of State Marco Rubio asking him to support the Swiss Peace Initiative. And the Trump administration responded with a letter, not mentioning the Swiss Peace Initiative by name, but saying they are encouraging both the Armenian government and the Azerbaijani government to work for the return of the refugees to Nagorno-Karabakh. So there is support for this in the Trump administration. There is support for this internationally. The biggest obstacle that we keep running into when we talk to diplomats about this, when we talk to members of, say, the German parliament or the British parliament about this, they say, well, if the Armenian government isn't interested in this, what do you want us to do? And we say, well, look, the people from Nagorno-Karabakh are not officially Armenian citizens, so you should advocate for them anyway.
Right.
Nevertheless, they have a point. This would be much, much easier if the Armenian government would give even tacit support for the right of return. And so we would encourage people in Armenia to take up the Swiss Peace Initiative, to advocate for it, to make their government aware of it. There is a chance here. There is a chance here.
And a core principle of your work, as your organization's name implies, the Christian Solidarity International. In your view, is there sufficient show of solidarity from international Christian communities and churches concerning the Armenian issue?
Sadly, absolutely not. And it's really tragic because during the Armenian genocide, as terrible as that was, the entire Western Christian world was awake to it, and they were involved. They raised millions of dollars in 1920s dollars for the refugees. It was one of the biggest humanitarian efforts in the history of the United States. In 2020, there was almost zero solidarity from Christians in the U.S. for Armenia. Now we're up to like from 0 to 10 or 20, right? A lot of our friends in Washington, D.C. have worked really hard to make this issue visible to Christian thought leaders in the U.S., and we're really grateful for the work that they've done. And the prayer breakfast that's happening is an expression of those efforts. But now it's almost as if we have to start again from zero because there's this attack on the Armenian church by the Armenian government. And a lot of these Christian groups who have a lot of sympathy for Armenia, who want to help the people of Nagorno-Karabakh, don't know what to do with this. And, you know, the United States government has a very robust diplomatic infrastructure to protect religious freedom. They've said nothing about this. So Christian groups look at that and say, well, what's wrong? You know, why isn't the U.S. government talking about this? And then other people whisper, well, you know, the Armenian church is under the influence of Russia, right? And then nobody wants to go there. Nobody wants to touch it.
I see.
Which Christian conservatives in the U.S. should not be surprised when people are falsely accused of being in bed with Russia.
Right.
That's been a major theme in American politics for the past 10 years. So I would say to other Christian organizations, the Armenian church, the Armenian people need your voice right now. The Armenian government is open to your influence. Your influence with the Armenian government is really high right now. This is your chance to speak, and don't overthink it. Priests are being put in jail. Human rights groups in Armenia are saying the evidence against these priests was falsified or trumped up. That's all you need to say. All you need to do is to defend the human rights of these people. You don't have to make a judgment about international geopolitics. Just stand up for human rights, and you can make a huge difference. You're here for the prayer breakfast. Try to visit the priests in jail. You're here for the prayer breakfast. Visit the elected leaders of the people of Nagorno-Karabakh that the Armenian government is trying to sideline. You're here for the prayer breakfast. Make some meaningful shows of solidarity. I've heard a lot of people who are coming to the prayer breakfast saying, this is not the Prime Minister's prayer breakfast. This is a prayer breakfast for Armenia. Good. Then visit the prisoners. Then visit the people of Nagorno-Karabakh.
And I guess, I mean, this is kind of going to be the final wrap-up statement, I suppose, for this conversation. But looking ahead, what do you see as the most critical steps? You kind of touched upon that for the international community, but also from within Armenia that could help to de-escalate the situation and protect religious freedom.
Yeah. I mean, Armenia is in an extremely difficult situation, and I don't underestimate it. But as I said, as everyone knows, Armenia is still the most free country in this region. And it's too easy for me to say this as an American who's not in danger in any way. But I'm going to do my best to speak out for the church, for the human rights of Armenians. I'm going to encourage other foreign Christians to do that. And I would hope that Armenian civil society will really rally to this challenge and push back and not wait until things get to the point where it's really impossible to speak out. Because we've seen that happen many times in this region and in other parts of the world.
Thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Angela.
And thank you for watching CivilNet.